Another busy weekend ahead on the racing front, kind of sandwiched in between the Betfred Derby and, of course, Royal Ascot to come next week. Let's try and build your betting bank then ahead of those fantastic days at the Royal Racetrack. Jason Weaver is alongside us. York, Sandown and Chester look forward to, Jace. Ground, definitely have a look at what the ground is at these venues this weekend. There's a lot of rain around.
Yeah, I think that's a major thing, isn't it? You are better off just waiting a little bit and seeing what conditions are like, because I've been lucky enough to be up at Yarmouth for the last couple of days, but it has been torrential on and off. Started on good ground, ended up we were on the very much the softer side of soft towards the back end of that meeting. So yeah, it'll be I think it's good action though, Matt. Of course, we know a lot of these big teams bubbling under and they want to be going into the Royal Meeting in good form. And that's not the case, is it, for one or two of the teams, especially the boys in blue?
Yeah, interesting point to be made. They've got some big irons in the fire next week. Will they be firing there? That's all to come. Loads of Royal Ascot previews to look forward to. Jason with us throughout the week, of course, as well at the Royal Racetrack. Well, let's have a look at this weekend's action then. And we've got York, Sandown. We're going to start at Chester. That's the first race for the ITV cameras. 135 over 6 furlongs. Again, when it comes to the draw, is it less influential when the ground rides on the soft side around the Rudy?
I don't think so, to be honest. Unless, I suppose, on occasions we have seen them swing out wide, haven't we, and make their run down towards the centre. I'm always in favour of getting down towards that inside pitch. I think it's a big help. Look, Bolognese, who has been put up £4 for the Ascot win. We got the likes of Accrual, the Loughnane team. They do well around here and is looking dangerously well handicapped. But I like a horse who loves a little bit of cut in the ground in here, and he has that inside draw, Matt. It's Station X, drawn in one, loves a bit of cut in the ground. He's on a fair mark. And I quite like the fact that David Probert gets the call, because although he had a quiet time, if you like, in the winner's front in Hong Kong, he has been flying since he's come back.
Okay, then Station X kicking us off in the Open at Chester. Then we've got the Lady Amateur Riders for the Queen Mother's Cup. And is it still the case when you're waiting champagne if you win this race? There'll be a bit of lead going in after the race for the winner, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think they'd be happy if me and you jumped on the scale. We get an extra few bottles, wouldn't we? Yeah, but filling their boots full of lead, whereas trying to beat the scale beforehand with the lightest equipment on as possible. Chillingham, you remember him? He was second in this last year, and then he got awarded the race, sadly, didn't he, afterwards? So the rider, Becky Smith, didn't get to sort of really enjoy her day, if you like. He's £6 lower this time around, but he's switched stables and hasn't shown anything of late. I quite like the look of Secret Force in here, Matt. Recently switched across to the Keatley team, went up to Hamilton, ran really well from the back of the pack, gets a good pilot on board as well. Second run for the squad, Secret Force. And guess what? He won't mind a bit of dig in the ground if they've had any rain.
Yeah, all important that, of course, as I say, the weather this weekend. Right, from one Roman city back to another then, and back to Chester on the Rudy, the 2:10. Just under a mile, they start right in the corner by the viaduct. Good little 3-year-old handicap, this one.
And I think this is where, from the jockeys booking, because we have 3 extremely good race courses for punters to attack, don't we? Then you get to see where the jockey bookings are. I find it fascinating that Harry Davis, we know he's got a good record at Chester. He's off the back of a really good win in the Dash at Epsom. He's in great form, and he comes in for what could be a very well handicapped runner in Masked Warrior for William Haggis in the Oppenheimer colours. He fairly bolted up when we saw him at Kempton last time. I quite like the fact, Matt, that he ran really well under soft conditions at Nottingham last year. So he handles a bit of dig in the ground. He's going to get that. He's towards the top of the market, but I think it's going to be a good day for Haggis, surprisingly. I shied away from him last weekend, but we're back on board the train.
There we are, then, yeah, the Oppenheimer Silks for Jason. Then in that 2:10 at Chester, then back up north up to York. It wouldn't be a York meeting with a big field handicap. 22 and plenty of them old favourites go over 7 furlongs in their 225.
Now, we know that there's a lot of the races are early closers, if you like. A Alto is starting to look very well handicapped. Ryan Moore, he decides to go here. We got Danny Tudhope. He'll be down at Sandown a little bit later. We talked about a Haggis runner with Harry Davis. Tom Marquand is at the other meeting. But A Alto would only get a penalty. I think it is a £6 penalty, though, were he to win here for the Bunbury Cup. I think it's a little bit of a sighter, isn't it? Just a prep going into Newmarket, because he's on a really, really good mark. You remember last year he bumped into More Thunder in that contest. Bobby Bennu, another one who's off the back of a really good run at Chester when we saw him last time. I think that was a fair return to action. But who's in here with a 2 from 2 and a Sussex entry? Extremely Zane for Haggis and Kieran Fallon. So it looks it's never easy going into tough handicaps with limited experience. But could this be fast-tracked all the way through with a Sussex entry? It'd need to be winning.
Certainly will be. Another one for Haggis and Extremely Zane. Big field, but you say still remains unbeaten. Could be a handicap snip. Group thing and a handicap, as they like to say. Right. First race at Sandown to look at is the Scurry over the Flying 5 for the 3-year-olds. Can Words of Truth get back on track? As you mentioned, a big time coming up for the boys in blue.
Yeah, well, I mean, what has happened? But hardly any runners to go at. You know, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, have they just been underperforming by that much that they've got a little bug, or they're just quiet, but they haven't been running with any sort of regularity or consistency? He comes back from a good run in Maidan, but that was over 150 days ago. He's been away for a little while, hasn't he? I think I'd shy away. I mean, Lady Humzane, she comes back down to the minimum trip. I think that's definitely going to help her. But you remember when Manatee Memas made his debut at Doncaster, bolted in, comes back, runs at York, and the winner of that race, Matt, came from way, way off the gallop and absolutely flew home, and he was up in the van. Look, he's not been gifted a great draw, but it's his second run. He's enlisted company again. Danny Tudhope could be on his doorstep at York for some really good rides, notably Epic Poet, who we'll see a little bit later on. But he goes down to ride this lad. He's got one other, not for David O'Mara either. So it's a bit of a pointer. He's down here for the Manatee.
Okay, Manatee Memas then at Sandown in the Scurry. Back up to York. And of course, we've got the Grand Cup at 3 o'clock over the Ebor track and trip. Only 6 go to post. Al Kareem in here. We now got a cracking stayer, his. And you mentioned Ryan Moore. You mentioned Epic Poke. Sorry, Ryan Moore replaces Danny Tudhope with him at Sandown.
Yeah, look, Al Kareem, he won the race last year. You got Mount Atlas. They bumped into each other with Al Kareem up at Musselburgh at the start of the year. Table Talk, he's threatened to run really well. I thought it was a good run over in Saudi, and then he's slightly disappointed at Sandown last time. But Epic Poet, surely that's the Rahib form, isn't it? You know, that Rahib is going to be towards the top of the market for the Gold Cup. I know it's a different discipline up over 2 miles, but incredibly strong form. Now, how does Ryan Moore beat Al Kareem in his own backyard? He comes fast, late, and wide. You can't get into any sort of eyeballing with Al Kareem. Ryan's too good anyway, so wherever he sees Clifford Lee go on the likely favourite, he'll sort of draft in for a while, but he'll get away from him to make his challenge. And Epic Poet, he hasn't won for a little while, but he certainly deserves to get one. And I think Ryan has slotted in for a particularly good ride. Again, none of his regulars up at York. He's only got 3 rides, couple for O'Mara and 1 for Ian Williams.
Okay, Epic Poet then. Yeah, William Buick obviously gone. There's 2 Godolphin runners on the cardio. We'll come on to one of those in a second. Back to Sandown though, for 3:17. A mile handicap, some unexposed types, including one trained by Mr. Haggis in high degree. Is that you thinking?
Well, Tom is there for two rides on the card. This is probably, or two for William Haggis anyway. This is probably the best. The other one is Crown Office a little bit later on in the 355, who's been gelded. So I think that this is probably Tom's best chance for the team. I'm a little bit worried that he drops back down to the mile, having run really well over a mile and a quarter behind Hand of God. So look, I know they've got to be flexible trip-wise, but I'm a little bit concerned with that. There's one I like at a massive price that I can't resist having a couple of quid on each way, and one's a low mileage improver. So we'll get that out the way first. Rami, who goes for Roger Varian and Ray Dawson, look really good. With a 100% record on the all-weather, far too keen on his return. What do? Exactly the same as they did with Salal at the Betfred Derby meeting. Put the hood on, get him to relax. He's got an entry in the John Smiths. He could be one going forward who is in front of the assessor. And I will have a pound each way on Tilted Kilt. He sucked me in on a few occasions last year, but he won't mind a bit of dig. This is his perfect sort of ground conditions. Dropped in, played late, Neil Callan on board. I think he's up there around 16, 20, something like that. He'll do for me at an each way price.
Yeah, I thought you might mention him. He has got a few times. Right, back up to York then. Big field, 3-year-old sprint. We know how difficult these are. William Buick, as I mentioned, he's got two rides for the boys in blue. This is one. He's got a 2-year-old as well later on in the card. But is this the reason why he's headed up to York?
Yeah, I think this would be the angle in. It was a really good run on his return at headquarters. I suppose again though, Matt, like he's been given a 42-day break, isn't it? You know, it just looks a little bit like guesswork as to how they are. You've got Johnny Murtagh bringing one over, who's been in great form back home in Ireland. Five Ways was a Group 3 winner last year. You got Postmodern. He actually ran in the Coventry, so a little bit of Royal Ascot form. Now, bumped into Zach Lloyd yesterday. He is son of none other than Jeff Lloyd, who rode about 5,500 winners worldwide, won loads of jockey premierships. Who was it? He's got William Haggis to thank for a good ride in here. Now, Thunder Call absolutely bolts up when we saw him last time, but a few of them in behind have given the form a real sort of solid look. So he could be absolutely thrown in off 85. Zach Lloyd, thankfully, is able to do a lightweight as well. 8 stone 5 he carries. It's another Haggis runner. Obviously, Marquand or Fallon couldn't ride this one. Too light.
Interesting, yeah, down the foot of the handicap. Then Thundercall. Could be a good day for William Haggis then. And then we were back to Sandown then for a real competitive 7 furlong 3-year-old handicap. If you're not a winner by now, well, you might be struggling because it doesn't get any easier.
And look, so this is the second one of Tom Marquand's for the Haggis team. Crown Office won really well at Leicester last year. Disappointed on his return. He's had the gelding operation straight away. No messing around. You got Wezer for Roger Varian, who basically cost an absolute fortune and was a little bit disappointing last time. Steps into a handicap. Utmost good faith, appears to have done his winning. They put all the equipment on for the combination. Looking forward to Bow Echo. Just maybe Sovereign Ocean could be the answer for Marco Botti. Now, he started off with Ian Jardine, won up at Hamilton with a bit of dig in the ground, and then was thrown in the Acomb behind Gawan. So shot pretty high early on, picked up for 50,000 by the Marco Botti team. Wins at Wolverhampton. Just think he's got a little bit more to offer, won't mind the ground, and shine away from the top 2. He's going to be a bit of a price as well.
He certainly is, yeah. Interesting then, Sovereign Ocean. Just his 4th start then in the final race, final one of 10 ITV races then this weekend. Jason has just run the rule over for us. What would be the strongest selection on the cards?
I'm really interested, especially because, you know, where we were at York, Matt, fairly recently, there was a little bit of an advantage down towards the low side, whether that's going to even out over the ground. But Thunder Call for Haggis, he strikes me as something that looks really, really well weighted. Just 8 stone 5 on his back. crack Australian jockey on board, Zach Lloyd. So there's a lot to put him forward. I know it's a big handicap, but sometimes if they're that far in front of the assessor, they can step straight up the ladder.
They certainly can, yeah. And obviously, like you say, the stables trying to put themselves in decent form. Looking into next week, what are you most looking forward to about Royal Ascot? I mean, Tuesday, St James's Palace could be a race for the ages.
Yeah, I mean, look, St James's Palace is a belter, and I suppose the draws will be coming out on Sunday morning, so we'll get an idea as to where they're positioned for that start on the round course for the St James's Palace. The Gold Cup is working up to be a belter, isn't it? If we get them all going, obviously Scandinavia is going to step forward, but I've been a big fan of Rahib. His form will be tested with Epic Poet. Obviously, we'd like to see him go and bolt up and just give you a little booster going in. But all the way through, some tremendous handicaps. And hey, listen, a whole host for us to get stuck into at the Royal Meeting.
Cannot wait for it. Kicks off, of course, with some cracking 4 Group 1s. Look forward to on Tuesday. Right, that's the Punters Guide. And hopefully, we can find some winners going in to Royal Ascot next week. Thanks to Jason. Best of luck for Royal Ascot and best of luck wherever you're back in on Saturday afternoon.